Hey, what's up, y'all? So we got part 3 for the actions dashboard coming up. Stay tuned. You're not going to miss it. All right, so in the last video, we kind of set up the canvas just a little bit. So now what we're going to do is advance on it. I'm going to add some bookmark buttons here, some KPIs, and then we'll go through the movement of all the bookmarks and all the interactivity between the charts as well. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a card, and I'm just going to toss this over here. And this is going to be my main KPI. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Workflow Analytics Measures. If you don't have all these measures, it's because the second video, we actually created them all. So if you don't watch that and then create all these measures before you dive into this video, it's going to be the most helpful. All right, so we have 2,658, right? We're just going to format this just a little bit. We're going to change this one to 8, and then we're going to change the color to black. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Effects. I'm going to change the background, and this is where we're going to do our conditional formatting. So I'm going to go to Rules first, and then we want to make sure that our field is based upon the actual measure that we're using, which is total. And then I'm just going to add a few more rules here. I'm going to put my numbers in here. So 12, 10, 7, and 0. This one's going to be 7, 10, 12, and then my cap is going to just be some astronomical number like 30,000. And then I could simply change the colors over here. So this one's going to be green. This one's going to be yellow almost. And we're going to go to orange. And then we'll go to red. Now, you can base it upon the actual legend and use that same exact color code. But just for this example, I'm going to keep it simple. I'm just going to use one of the ones that are already defaulted there. I'm going to press OK now. And now we have a color. All right, so now we have our KPI here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my effects. I'm going to go to my visual border, make sure that's turned on. I'm going to increase it to 5 just in case you want rounded corners. Then I'm going to change the border color so it's not black. I'm going to change it to blend in with this. So now you can see it just kind of smooth, and you have your KPI simply put right there. And just to test it out, it is dynamic, so I'm just going to click on one of these real quick and just make sure the interaction works, and we are good to go. All right, so we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to do is control copy this and paste it, and I'm just going to toss this up here. We'll change the format here in a second. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to General. Let's go to Effects. We're going to turn the background completely off. So we're actually going to erase the whole background. I'm going to turn the border off as well. And what I want to do is I want to change the color of the font to match my gold here. So I'm just going to go here real quick. I'm going to grab this color. I'm going to come back here. I'm going to turn the background off. I'm going to go to my font color now, and I'm going to change it to gold. And then my category label, just to make it a little bit more distinct, and I don't want it to be too much gold, I'm going to make that white. And then I'm going to change this to 9, and I'm going to change the top one to 30. And now we have our total here. We're going to change the measure now. All we did here was just change the format just a little bit. I'm going to increase that a little bit just so it blends in nicely halfway through. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the measure. This one is going to be access requests. We have 60 total there. And then the last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to italicize the number just so it sticks out a little bit more and it's different from this. And then I'll just adjust this slightly so it sits over here. And I'm also going to increase the padding just so it sits higher a little bit. And there we are. Now we can buy ourselves a little bit more space. And I can just control copy this. And we can do this and rinse and repeat for every single part type. So this one is just going to be admin records correction. So ARC pars there. We're going to copy that and paste that here. Next, we're going to do assignments. Next, we're going to do award approval. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because I like to write all my measures first. I like to mind map exactly what I want to develop, right? And then I'll go ahead and just start doing all the visualizations. So we're going to do award cancel, award correction. We're going to do paid. We're going to do promotion. We're going to do qual and skills, so Q and S. We're going to do status. And then I'm going to increase the box just a little bit here. And then we'll do standard. And then we'll just increase that a little bit. Buy ourselves a little bit more space. And we could just adjust these to our liking, depending on if they're fitted properly or not. And here we are. And then if you want, you could always just highlight over everything and then go in here and then make the title bold as well. And we'll decrease that a little bit. And if we want, we could change the font too, just to fit a little bit better. But I'm not sure I like that font too much with bold. So we can leave it like that. Now, as long as everything fits, I think we're in a good place. What we don't want is we don't want the text to bleed through to another line, and then now you don't see the full title, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and create a few more measures, but I'm going to have them at the bottom here. I'm actually going to make 5 total here. And these are just additional measures, right? Provide further insight on kind of what's going on. So this is going to be average days since created. We're going to do average days since modified, average pool days. We're going to have to look into this measure. This one's going to be routing count, and this one's going to be HR processing. This measure is saying something not reading properly. All right, so what I didn't do is I forgot to just change the data type in Power Query. So I changed it to a whole number, and here we are. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make sure all my values have 0 decimal places. I don't really want to see any decimals here. We just want to round, and here we are. All right, so far we've already created all these KPIs, right? So now we're going to do some buttons and create all the interactivity that we want to do and utilize the rest of our canvas here so that we can see by name details. We can also see different charts, different types of metrics, things like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go to Insert. I'm going to create a blank button here, and we're going to make sure the formatting is actually perfect for the first one, simply because we want to make sure that we just copy and paste this button every single time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to text, and I'm just going to type in what I need here. So this will be average days in S1 pool. We're going to make that white. We're going to shrink this a little bit. We're going to make sure it's pretty high because we're going to have a lot of buttons actually. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to make sure it's justified. So it's lined up perfectly with this other one. As we can see, the lines are lining up properly, right? And then I'm just going to change the text value again. And we're just going to rinse and repeat this for a few of them. And then we'll go from there. All right, so I got about halfway and I realized that my size is kind of too tall. So I'm just going to go into properties after I highlight everything and just change it a little bit. I just want to make sure that I don't mess up any of the text so that you can still see everything. I'll probably shrink it down to 25. And now what I'll do is I'll just make sure it's lined up. So I'll get that red line there and I'll just drag it up. All right, so once you're done with all that, we have a total of about 14 or 15 buttons here. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a text box just to show that it's a reports box. So I'm going to insert here once again. I'm going to click on text box. We're just going to type in reports. So we're going to change the font to be that gold again. We're going to center it. We're probably going to make it bold just to stand out a little bit. And then what I'm going to do again is I'm going to go to effects. I'm going to remove the background. And I'm just going to minimize this just a little bit. And then I'll go ahead and drag that over here. Now, what I don't want to do is I don't want to have this reports text box overlaying on top of the first button. So what I'm going to do here is I'll just simply highlight everything. I'll make sure I'm highlighted over the text box as well. And then I'll just click down until I know that there's no overlap at all. So now it's lined up perfectly. And I could also increase this box a little bit too if I wanted to. Can shrink it down some more just so it's a little bit in the middle. And here we are. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create bookmarks. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to open up my bookmarks tab. I'm going to close this for a second just so you can see a little bit. And the reason I'm opening this up is because I want to label them as I go, just so it's easier to be organized and I know exactly which ones are representing which buttons. So what I'll do is I'll go back to insert. I'll create another button here. But this time all we're going to do is we're going to just overlay this on top of our KPI. Right, so we have a perfect overlay on top of this. And now what we're going to do is simply make sure that we have no background on it. We have no icons. We have nothing. And it's just a simple box, right? So this will allow us to click within the button here and it'll change what we're looking at here in the canvas. And what I'll do is I'll just keep adding this over all these icons just to make sure everything is covered. And the important takeaway here is that you don't want any boxes overlapping at all, because if you do, it's going to confuse your audience on what exactly they're supposed to just click on, and then you might have to go back in later and then try to just fix that. So I just kind of click on one and I highlight the buttons that I just created as well, just to make sure there's no overlap, and then I just keep it moving. All right, so we're looking good so far. I also try to align everything that's in place so they're on the same even level. And this is another reason why I make all my KPIs the same size, is because it allows me to create the same size buttons as well. And I don't have to create new dimensions for different options. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to go into the next step, which is actually creating the charts for all these different icons and then all these ones as well. And that's really where the bookmarks are going to come in. So we're just going to save things kind of as we go and go from there. All right, so the first chart that we're going to make is going to be a clustered bar chart. And we're just going to kind of go ducks in a row. I'm actually going to bring this up a little bit just so we can align things properly right here. Buy some space. And what I'll do is I'll just drag this all the way down until I meet the top of this KPI. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a stacked org structure here. And then I'm just going to do description type. That's going to be on my x-axis. And here we have it. So now I'm just going to format this a little bit. We're going to expand everything out. We're going to make all my values white. I'm going to remove the title. I'm going to make the values white as well. I don't need that title either. I'm going to go to general now. So I'm going to just hop over here just for a quick second because I'm going to turn the background off. I'm going to say access request here. Go back to visual. We're going to change the color theme to be gold. I actually missed a spot here. I'm going to go back to title. Change that. I'm going to go center that. And then I'll go to my data labels. I'm going to turn data labels on. I'm going to turn my background on. I'm going to make the background white. And then what I'll do is I'll go ahead and make the value black. I'll bold that. And I'll just increase that size there. And now we can see these are not actually tolling to the access request, right? So we're going to just filter this data now. So all I did here was I just brought in the description type once again. And now I'm just filtering to exactly which one I'm looking at, which is access request. And now we have our total. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I want to identify a by name list associated with this data point. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create a table, and I'm going to adjust this to the right side here. I'm going to make sure that this doesn't overlap just a little bit. And then I'm going to go ahead and format this one now. And then I'm going to go ahead and just bring in all the data points that I need. So the first one's going to be rank. So I'll just change this to the value that I want. Next one is going to be name. Next one is going to be days since created. We're going to make sure it's not a sum. It's actually going to be a count. I'll just rename that. And then days since modified. And same thing as well. We're going to make sure that's a count. And then we're going to go ahead and remove that count of text that's there. And then I'll just go ahead and put that brigade in there. You can put other values as well if you want. I'll put status result 2. And then you could just switch these around depending on how you want them oriented. And now if you want other values such as employee ID, you can always add that too. But for now, I'll kind of leave it as it is. And then I'm just going to format this table now. The first thing is I'm going to go here to general. I'm going to make my background a different color. So I'll make it this. And this is essentially going to match this same background color here. I'm going to change the grid lines to be this color as well. Then this blue one's going to be gold as well. Text color, we're just going to make all the text color white. And then the background color is going to match the background color that we just had. And same thing here as well. Actually, we're going to make the text color gold. And then if you want, you could also change the value size. You could shrink that a little bit just so everything fits. And I don't want the totals, so I'm going to turn the totals off just because it's a by name list, right? And then we could also sort it from A to Z depending on the alphabetical structure that you have or whatever format that you want. And then what I'll do as well is I'll go to certain columns and I'll just click on the header, align things however I deem is fit for kind of this table structure. So I'll make sure everything is centered here. Now, once again, you could add more elements. You can take away from whatever you want. But the goal is here that you can click on this and the interactivity is going to change here. So that's why I have it like this. You can also right click, show data point as table, and receive your by name list that way. But rather than receiving a whole new spreadsheet, right, a whole new different visual that's separate from this, that takes you to a whole new landing page essentially, you have everything kind of nested in one exact location. And then what I'll do just to finish this part up is I'll go ahead and add a visual border. I'll choose the same exact black, kind of faded black color that we've been using. And I'll make it a 5 for rounded corners. And then here we have the same rounded corner structure as this, and then our KPI up here and everything else that we've been using. All right, so once I have this set up, right, so now I can go over to my bookmark, and then I can create a bookmark because this is going to be my snapshot for what I want for access request. So I'm going to go to bookmarks now. I'm going to click on add. And then what I do here is I label the actual bookmark. The first part is going to be the actual tab that I'm working on, so the report that I'm working on. So this one is going to be pars. And then now I'm going to do a dash and then tell me exactly which report I'm going into by clicking on this bookmark. So this one is going to be access request. And now I know if I click on this button, it's going to take me directly here. But let's not click on it just yet, because what I want to do is I want to ensure that we create more bookmarks, and then we'll kind of flip back and forth to other visualizations, meaning bookmarks, and then we can go from there and start editing and updating more steps. Right, so for the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to selection now, and I'm going to click on this. I'm going to make sure I hide it. And then you could always change the table name as well, just so you know exactly which one you're working with. So we're going to just call this access table. And now we know if I hover over this or I click on it, it's the access table, right? I'm actually going to copy this before I remove it. And I'm going to hide this one now, the original. And the reason I did that is because I'm just going to move on to the next visualization that I'm going to make. So I can move this out of the way for the time being. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a clustered column chart. I'm going to go to my filters here. I'm going to remove this filter. And now this is going to be all my total pars. So all my different actions that I have. So I'm just going to change the title. Ask me to call this total. Keep it as simple, right? So now what I can do is I can go into my selection. This is going to be called total because I changed the header. Now the reason you didn't see the actual title name on the access table that we showed earlier was because it didn't have an actual header in the chart, in the table itself. So if you have a table, so if you have a chart and you change the name here, it's going to change it here within the visual as well. Now what I'll do is I'll go ahead and go into my bookmarks. And now I'm just going to add another bookmark. This is going to be pars. And this is actually going to be my clear filters. So this is going to be my landing page for what I want people to navigate to when they initially click on this. So I'm actually going to update this bookmark here with par clear filters. And now what I want to do is I want to assign this one as well. So I'll go to actions, I'll go to bookmarks, and then I'll go to access request. And then now if I click on this, this is what happens, right? So that's the issue with bookmarks, is that as you build more and more different types of bookmarks, more charts, things like that, it's going to layer. So you have to go back into the bookmark itself. So I'm in access request right now. So I got to go to my selection. I got to hide my total. And then I have to go here to access request, update. And now I can just toggle back and forth, right? So I click on here again, and now here we are. Or I click on here, and here we are. All right, so I'm not going to do a actual bookmark for every single one here. I am going to do it for about 2 more of these, just because the awards one's a little bit different, and I'll show you exactly what I'm doing there. And then we'll do a few more here as well, and then kind of close it up from there. But as long as you understand the gist of it, which is as long as you have a bookmark here over your tiles for your KPIs here, you're ensuring that your filter selected here, you're going to be good to go, because that's going to be your primary indicator for all these different KPIs. All right, so the awards one's about to get a little bit crazy, so just bear with me a little bit. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to click on my different buttons here, and I'm just going to relabel them real quick. I'm just going to navigate through each one, and you can do it as well and just label it whatever you want, but this will allow me to identify exactly what it is that I'm looking at here, so that when I start hiding something for the award stuff, it's going to be easy for me to identify. All right, so the reason I did that is because what I'm going to do now is I'm going to control and copy this. I'm going to go back to the original table. I'm going to hide this one. And then this one is now going to be called award approval. And we're going to have a lot of interactivity here. Do the same thing here. Just going to hide this one. And this one is going to be called the same exact thing, award approval. And I'm going to actually label this one that I just changed to table, just so it's easier to delineate. And then I'm going to shrink this now and bring this over here just a little bit. I'm going to change this one to be award approval. All right. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a different column here. And what I want to integrate is going to be the award type. So we're going to bring in award name. I'm actually going to move that up here. And then you can see how it's not centered, so we're going to have to fix that too. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring in days to presentation as well. We're going to change that to account. You can see how some of them aren't actually applicable, right? And that's because not all of them are awards. So what we're going to do now, we're going to go to filters. We're going to bring in the description type again. And we just want to make sure that we have award approval only in here. And now we can see everything is applicable, right? Everything is filled out appropriately. And then you could also go in and center the days of presentation, center the award name. You can also bring in other different types of columns. And then you could also create more conditional formatting based upon the days of presentation. So if it's getting closer to a specific date like today, you know, as in the 1 or like 10 or less, for example, you might want to make it red just because it's getting close. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a bookmark now really quick just to save what we did so far. And I'm going to call this awards, award approval. Now I'm going to do the same exact thing. And I'm just going to replicate this over here. Same thing for this one too. You just line these up, make sure they're perfectly aligned. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to change the filter. This one is going to be called award correction. So we'll change this one. We'll change this one as well. And there we have it. And all we got to do now is just change the title. And here we have award correction. We also have to go in, go to our selection, change our table name, make sure our chart is correctly labeled as well. So we have one here, we have one here. The next one you can make is award cancel as well. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hide all these different KPIs, right? And the reason I'm doing that is because I want to now integrate award KPIs specifically to this landing page only. So that's why we named all of our bookmarks here, right? So we're just going to start hiding all this stuff now that we just labeled. So as you hover over it, you can see which ones are which as well. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on one of these slicers. I'm going to bring that over here. I'm going to max that out a little bit. Blow it up. I can remove that for a second. And then we're going to bring in award. This will be changed to award type now. So that's our entire legend here. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to copy this KPI format. We're going to make 5 different KPIs. And the first one's going to be average days to presentation. So now we have to go back to our measures here. We're going to throw that in here. We can also change the format to be no decimals, right? Like we talked about. Next one is going to be different award types. CARCOM, MSM, and an LM. Right, so now we have all our award types here. So now what I want to do is I want to go to my bookmarks. I want to go to my award approval. And I click on update. All right, so this is what it's going to look like when I now navigate to my awards one. But what's going to happen, right? It's probably going to look a little chaotic for a second once we traverse over to another one. So now it looks completely crazy, right? So you have to kind of fix this a little bit. So we got to kind of hide everything that we just built, just so we can have some clarity on what we're looking at here. So we're going to hide all the award stuff. And now this could be our clear filters one. And then we go to access request. And same thing, we'll just hide everything that we did for all the award stuff again. And here we have it, right? We also need to make sure that we have the filter set up for this one, which I did not do. So I'll go ahead and make sure that we have the description type here as well. And that was for access request. And we'll just go ahead and update that. And now what I'll do is I'll just update the bookmarks we have for these 3 buttons. And they're going to be the same exact landing page. The award approval for this one. This one. And this one as well. So now, if I click on Actions Request, I'm already here. I navigate to Award Correction for award approval. It's automatically going to take me here. I reset. I'm going to go back here and same thing. So that's kind of how the interaction is going to work. Now, Actions Request, Tile, they're all going to look the same except for the award one. That's the only one that's going to look a little bit different, which is why I wanted to demonstrate that one. All the other ones will just have your simple chart and table next to it as well. I also have award summary. It's going to be the same exact thing too. So I'm just going to change that one. Nothing too crazy there. All right, so the only different ones that we're really going to be doing here is now going to be parsed by type, and then I'll do brigade total as well. All the other ones are going to be very simple, so it's just going to be a chart just like this, and you have your by name details on these ones. So these are going to be your aggregated formats versus these ones are going to be your by name detail. All right, so for brigade total, what we're going to do is just copy and paste this, and then we're just going to hide this total one that's underneath it. We're going to go to visualizations, and then I'm going to move this down to legend now. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to find by name, or you can do employee ID. It really doesn't matter here. And then now this is going to give me a total of every different type of par within each organization. You can also blow this up, right? You can look at it independently like this, or you can keep it this way. It's really up to you. And we're going to change the font here as well. So we're going to change the legend. We're going to make it white just so it stands out a little bit. And here we have it. So that's going to be our total by brigade. So I'll actually change the title too, just so we don't have to change it in the selection, right? And we already have that done. So now I'll go to bookmarks, as you guessed it probably. We'll go to pars, and then we'll do brigade total. The next step, once again, as always, as you create more bookmarks, right, is you have to go now into all the other ones that you made, and you just have to start hiding what you made, right, as the most recent one. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that you only update the one that you're just clicking on, because what's going to happen is if you don't, you're going to have to then unhide things, hide some things, and create a new bookmark and update it potentially. And that just takes time, right? So you just want to be careful on which ones you're actually clicking on and then which ones you're updating. And now we're testing our interactivity here, and everything looks good. The next one I'll do is total par summary. So once again, I'm just going to copy and paste this chart here, and I'm going to go ahead and go into my visualization. I'll change the title real quick. I'm going to call this total par summary, and then I'll go ahead and hide the one I made before. We're good there. We can add a new bookmark. I'll call this par summary as well. I'll update the other bookmarks in a second, because this is not going to be the final format we want. Actually, this is going to be called total pars by type. Par by type. That's my fault there. And then we're going to remove all this. We're going to bring that here. Then we're going to bring name here as well. And then now we have a total by type. So same exact data points that are up here, just in a different format. And once again, you can always right click, show data points table, and you can get your by name list that way too. So now what I can do is I can go ahead and update this. I'll actually rename it to, just to make sure that it doesn't get confused with par summary. And then I'll go ahead and update my other ones as well. I'll start hiding all the other things. We have brigade total here. We have award approval. So usually everything that you make is always going to be put at the top, the most recent thing. So all you got to do, simply click on your bookmark, go backwards in time basically, and then just hide what was just created. And now I'll just create those interaction buttons here. And now we can just test it once again. So we have access request here, which is already on it. We have award approval. We have the reset button. We have the brigade total. And we have pars by type. All right, but with that said, folks, hopefully this was able to help you. Just to summarize real quick, because I used only about 3 colors here. We have the gold. We have 2 different shades of black. And then we have white. I don't really count white just because it's easy to see. And it's always universally used, right? But this is just a way that you can customize your dashboard. You can create some interactivity between bookmarks, all of which are always can be dynamic. You can have those buttons applied on a specific visual, just so you can click on anything as if it's a real website. You also want to make sure that you unhide everything that's applicable and parent to that bookmark, so you know that as a user clicks on something, they know exactly what they're able to do. But as always, make sure that you're testing your product in full before you deploy it, so you know all the interactivity is solid. But with that said, let me know if you got any questions at all, folks. Hit the like button down below, subscribe, leave a comment, and as always, thanks for watching.